We are getting a half cow today. It is payment from our neighbours who keep their cattle on our property on the bottom 40 acres. So they said, hey, instead of paying you, would you like half a cow? And we said yes, because grass-fed meat is much more valuable to us than $100 a month. So I'm just preparing some marinade for some jerky, some beef jerky, but it's going to be more like the South African biltong. So I'm sure this is not a traditional recipe, I'm not claiming it is, but it is a recipe that I've used before and I really enjoyed the flavours. So I'm quadrupling the recipe because I've got a huge 10 shelf dehydrator, which I'll show you in a minute, and it takes a lot of meat. So I think quadruple the recipe will be hopefully enough. So basically I need 1 cup of sugar, and I'm using vanilla sugar, which is cane sugar juice that's been dehydrated instead of refined with a whole lot of bleach and stuff. So I'm using 1 cup of that, which has a lovely molasses flavour too, so I think will really add to the jerky. It's my first time making jerky in the dehydrator too. I'm so excited about this. I've made jerky in the oven, but never, I've only had my dehydrator for a month, so I've been waiting for the cow so we can come do this. Now I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of ground coriander. Now this is coriander that I grew myself, so I'm just going to pop that in my Thermomix and grind it up. If you don't have a Thermomix, use whatever you usually use to grind it up, or just buy it pre-ground. This stuff is so much more potent than store-bought stuff. It's really amazing to smell the difference. Okay, I also need 4 tablespoons of garam masala. Garam masala is an Indian spice mix, and I don't have any at the moment, so I've got to blend my own. So a tablespoon of cumin, 1.5 tablespoons of coriander seeds, 1.5 teaspoons of cardamom seeds. You can use the pods as well if you've got that, but I've only got the seeds. 1.5 teaspoons of pepper, a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves. The amazing thing about cloves is that clove inhibits mold, so maybe that's why it's included in so many preserves. 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. And I'm going to blend all that up too. So we need 4 tablespoons of this as well, the garam masala. So 4 tablespoons of the coriander seeds ground, and 4 tablespoons of the garam masala. Should be 4 in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Probably 5. Takes it all. Yep. And now we need 4 tablespoons of fish sauce. Also need 4 tablespoons of soy sauce. Now I don't have any fresh ginger, so I'm going to use ground ginger. I'm going to use dried ginger. So I asked for a knob of ginger. I'm going to put that much in. Also want 8 cloves of garlic, so I'm going to use these 2 small bulbs. So the garlic's going in. And I don't have any coriander growing at the moment, or cilantro as other people call it. It's all gone to seed, so I'm going to use parsley instead. So just a big bunch like that.
It looks like grass, like the lawnmower cut some grass up into there. I'm not joking, does it look like it?
Yes. That's it guys, we just need to add in 2.5 kilos of meat. It says flank steak. I'm not sure what flank steak is, I don't know what we call that here. So I'm going to go do a bit of research and I'll try and find the right cut. I'll let you know what the translation is to that, and I'll show you cutting it up, marinating it and popping it in the dehydrator. And there it is, half a steer. That is a lot of meat. is what is recommended to make beef jerky or biltong out of. Now I spoke to the butcher and I wanted to get his confirmation on that, and he said, yep, this is perfect for that. And he said you can either slice it against the grain for a beautiful tender jerky, or slice it with the grain for a chewier jerky. So that's your choice. I'm going to go against the grain because I want it a little bit more tender. I quite like this slow cooked as well. So I guess the thinner the better. He said I could trim some of the fat too. Oops. Which I might have to do. So I'm just popping them on my dehydrator racks. I decided to get the stainless steel racks because I didn't want my food touching the plastic. The meat's been marinating for a couple of hours, and it would be amazing if it was overnight like recommended, but I think it's taken off enough of the flavour. You can see it's become quite dark. And I'm going to pop it in the dehydrator overnight. That's why I'm doing it now instead of waiting for it to marinate overnight, just because it's going to be so hot tomorrow. I didn't want to warm the house up too much. So but the 2.5 kilos, that has only done 3.5 trays, so I could have done more, but we wanted to try it first and see how it turned out before we did the whole lot, and then I can just pull the rest out of the freezer and do it at a later date if I want to. So I'm just going to pop it in at 165 Fahrenheit. We're going to start off at 12 hours. Now 165 Fahrenheit is around about 70 degrees, so I don't think that quite meets standard in Australia, but you know, needs to do this out in the sun. So I'm going to make tallow with the fat that came from the beef. And with this I'm going to cook, and I'm going to make some soap. So I'm going to show you how to make soap next week when it cools down a little bit, but I'm going to start melting it down or rendering it down, and I'm going to do it in my slow cooker. You can do it in the stove top, but it's going to be really hot in the next couple of days. It's going to be high 30s tomorrow and about 43 degrees Celsius Friday, and that equals about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to try and keep as minimal appliances running as possible. And basically you just need to chop it up in really small pieces and cook it on low. You can do it on the stove. You don't need a slow cooker until it's really melted, and then you need to strain out all the meats and bits. And this is the tallow. It's sunk down a little bit. It was kind of manded up when I first started, and it's starting to become translucent. And you can see some of the fat has started to sizzle out. The tallow is nice and melty. I might leave this on for another 12 hours and then I'll strain it out. So the tallow is ready. It takes about 10 to 12 hours. You want all the liquid to evaporate and the fat to come out. So now I'm just going to strain out all these chunky bits. I got two 2-litre jars of tallow. And apparently these can be stored in the pantry for about a year, if not a little bit longer. They keep even longer in the refrigerator and of course the freezer. But I don't have room in my fridge or my freezer, so I'm going to try it in my pantry and we'll see how we go. But all up, I should end up with 32 litres of beef tallow, which is phenomenal. So one of the biggest tips that our farmer friends told us, and also the butcher, was to stack the freezer, and then the next day unstack it, and then restack it with all the things that were in the middle to the outside and all the things on the outside to the middle, just so everything freezes evenly and doesn't freeze in one big solid block, because if it does, it's a bugger to get out.
The stuff in the middle will take days if not weeks to freeze, because if you can imagine, it's like a giant esky in there, or a giant cooler box. The outside will get frozen, and it will take a long time for that cool air to travel right the way through to the centre to freeze it properly. So that's why we sort of mix it up.